This is the Vision 79 podcast where my friend Sander and myself, Mason, discuss recent developments in our business and personal growth. The name Vision 79 comes from our respective racing numbers. Sander's is 40, mine is 39, and we have a shared vision for success in business and personal life. Many successful people have started small, just like us, but very few of them have documented their journey. We intend to be the first to document our journey from start to finish. I like to start each episode with a business update of where we're at in our careers so that when we're listening back on these in the future, we can kind of get an estimate of where we were in our lives. So my weekly update is that we came up with a list of events that we want to incorporate into our new project. Think like, ping pong tournament style thing, beer pong stuff. Just fun things for the community to be involved with. We did a lot of system security research, like door alarms, and they've got gunshot alarms, which measures the air pressure in the room, which is pretty interesting. We did a lot of progress on the legal documents, you more so than myself. And we had a fantastic meeting with our partner, and it went really well. We talked about some communication problems that we're having, and I think that it supports that having open, honest conversation about any issues that you guys are having really opens up the opportunity for a simple solution.
Mm-hmm. We did a little bit more work on the cost analysis aspect of things too.
We did.
Did
we?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
A little bit. Yeah, I think that was this week. That was early.
Okay.
Yeah.
And dude, anything past 3 days ago, I can't remember.
Yeah. And he was really happy with our update as well.
Yeah.
So that was cool.
Yeah. No, I'm very happy with how everything went, especially because, and I have a quote about this week as well, but we'll wait for a second. I have another update. I continue to think about, though, what do you look for in a business partner? And one of the things that I look for is if you have a problem and you address it with them, how do they respond, right? Do they get defensive? Do they get emotional? Do they get upset? Are they stuck and not willing to compromise? But I think in this instance, not only were they willing to compromise, but they also agreed with us. And they were like, I'm glad you brought this up because I have been lacking, right? But yeah, I'm very happy with how everything is progressing. It looks like we're on track still. There's no problems. Everything's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
good. I'm happy.
That's the business update. I have a quick life update too, just to give us an anchor point of where we're at in our lives. Like when you think about, pick an event in your life in junior year of high school. If you also heard what you had done that week, you'll be, I remember that. Because this stuff we're going to forget about by the time we're 40, right?
Oh, for sure.
So, for example, my car's having problems again, right? The clutch was super vibrating and felt weird. The car wouldn't start. Now it seems to be starting pretty regularly, and the clutch vibration is almost gone. It's very minimal. No idea, right? And you're having car problems too, which is spectacular.
Yeah. I thought a fun day idea would be to go drifting at the compound, and I blew up the cooling fan relay in my Miata and overheated it. The car seems fine. I'm not burning any coolant or oil. It starts fine. I don't have any running issues, but when the cooling fan relay blew, it melted the connector point on the actual fuse box and also completely melted the cooling fan relay. So when I pulled it out, I had to take pliers and wiggle it and yank it. It was adhered. So that's super cool. I've been meaning to wire an external relay to run the larger fans that I have for a while, and I think this is my calling to finally do that. Then I bought a bunch of parts for the 530.
I was going to say, it's funny. That's not even the car problems I was talking about. I was talking about the BMW.
Yeah. The BMW, I'm a little bit 50-50 about keeping. Just because of some additives that the previous owner added into the oil. When I pulled the oil, it didn't look the best. So I'm going to give it a week. I'll run some new oil through it, see what it looks like. But I have some new parts that I think will increase the value of the car overall if I do go to sell it. And I'll just have to go from there. I'm not sure what I really want to do with it at this point.
I think it's an opportunity to practice what we preach and take a bad situation and make it into a better situation than we had even started.
Yeah.
Right. But not my circus.
M3.
It's fucking, because you don't want any reliability problems.
Oh, yeah. No, those M3 motors.
Yeah, so those are the car problems. I have a potential job offer coming my way. I just caught wind of it at a team lunch the other day, but the team that I have been asked to support, I turned down the full-time role, and they were like, can you just do it half-time?
Yeah.
And I was like, I could do it halftime. So I've been doing that work. They really like me. And then I heard through a mutual friend who is a functional manager, they like run your career. At lunch, he was like, hey, someone was asking me for a character reference. And I was like, who? And he was like, it's the lead of the team that you're doing 50% on. And I was like, oh. So I'm wondering if maybe they asked me to come over. I said no. They were like, what about 50%? I said, okay. I'm wondering if they're putting together like a job offer package for me, like with a promotion and more money and stuff. That'd be super cool.
Yeah.
I don't know, and I probably won't know for another week or two, but I think it's interesting, and I'm just considering my options there.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Honestly, I've had a conversation with that guy before because I told him, I was like, my boss got upset with me coming in late. I was coming in at like 11, right? But I was getting all my work done, so who cares? And he was like, dude, that's ridiculous. As long as your work gets done, I don't care when you come in. And I made note of that because if he offers me this job, like with pay or promotion or whatever, I could tell him like, dude, I don't care about the rest of that crap. But like, if you're cool with me coming in whenever I need to get my work done, I will come work for you. That'd be a fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome spot.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I wish I had that flexibility still.
You used to.
Well, that's why I said still.
Right. And then my last life update is on gym consistency. Because in one of our first podcasts, I mentioned like, oh, I'm not getting in the gym enough, but like I'm going to do more of it, whatever, right? I made a calculator in Google Sheets where I track what days I have and haven't gone to the gym. So I have a live tracker that shows me of the days that have happened so far this month, what % have you gone to the gym? And then at the end of the month, it tells you % overall. So in March, I was hitting the gym 30 to 40% of the days. It's rough because I didn't track the whole month. In April, I was at 46%, so a market improvement. In May, I was at 58%. Again, an improvement. But I was thinking to myself, dude, 58%, that's like roughly every other day. And it doesn't feel like I work out every other day. Like I feel like I work out like 5 or 6 times a week. So then I locked in, and so far this month, we're like halfway through June, I'm at 73% of the days. For reference, only taking the weekends off, so working out 5 days a week, is roughly 80%. So I'm going to aim from here on out to be around 80% to stay consistent with it.
Makes sense.
But yeah, I really like it. And I've been using the, if you need perfect conditions to start, then your success is conditional quote to motivate myself. Because like if you're busy, you don't want to get into the gym. Like you've got other shit to do, right? But that's the perfect time to build a new habit when you're busy. Because if you start doing it when you're not busy and then you get busy, you'll drop it. Yeah. So
I was actually thinking about the gym thing too, because I haven't been in a while. I just haven't made it a priority. And I came up with this idea the other day, and it's, I want to work out, for me, just 3 times a week would be like a good back to basics run.
What kind of workouts? Cardio or
I want to start with just something. Like I got to go to the gym and do something because I haven't been in a while and I've just slacked.
Got it.
So I just want to force myself to do something. And what I thought about doing was 3 times a week times 4 weeks would be 12.
Yep.
And so what I'm thinking is I'm going to give you $10 for each day that I have to go that month. So I'll give you $120.
Okay.
For each day that I go, I get back $10.
Okay.
Right? Okay. I think this will work for me.
I like this plan.
Yeah.
So I keep the money?
You sort of keep the money.
Okay.
Whatever is left over after those months or whatever timeline, once we really go ham on our business plan, then at that point, I'll get half of the money back and you keep the other half. So if $100 is left over, you get 50 and I get 50. So I still get a little bit back, but there's still some level.
There's a penalty. Got it.
Yeah, there's a penalty. Yeah.
This is awesome. I'm going to do everything in my power to prevent you from going to the gym.
Oh, God.
Actually, genuinely speaking, if you're having trouble, I don't know when you want to start doing this. We can start
just
tomorrow if you want. Sure.
So yeah, tomorrow.
I found that when I wasn't getting into the gym, it was because I was like, I want to go work. Like I want to go do shit at the bar with Sander, and I don't want to fucking spend 2 hours going to the gym.
That's how I feel too.
Yeah. Well, it's tough because you have to drive the opposite direction to work every day as well. Right. But it's also right next to Pauhana where we do a lot of our work. So
that's why I want to just do something. Like even if I go there and it's like a crappy 15-minute cardio thing. Yeah. Like I just want to get in the space. Because I think if I get myself to get in the space again, because I used to be good about it. Yeah. I think if I get myself in the space, even if the first 2 weeks are just like shitty cardio, you know, whatever, like walking on a treadmill or whatever. Yeah. Like at week 3, I'll be like, hey, I kind of want to do a lift today. Yeah. Then I'll get into a lift and then I'll get back in that groove.
Yeah.
But I just got to get myself into the building.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want to do. So that's what I want to implement with that money.
Yeah.
I think that will motivate me because, $10 for each day that I go, even if I do a 20-minute workout, that's essentially worth $30 an hour,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is about what I make now.
Right.
So it's relatively proportional.
You're essentially paying me when you don't go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. And that holds me accountable.
Right.
And like each
Monetarily.
day that I go, I'll send you a picture of the front of the gym.
Yeah.
Hey, I went.
When I was having trouble being consistent, it was because I was super tired and we had a lot of work to do. So even if I had time, like if the work was a little bit lower that day, even if I had time, I was exhausted and didn't want to go. But I told myself, you don't have to do a full work. Because at that time I was like in the gym for 2 hours at a time working out. And I was like, just go in and do 2 sets of whatever you want, right? It could be 1 set of bench and then 1 set of lat pull down. It doesn't matter. Like go in and do 2 sets of something and then you're done. Go home. But by the time you get there and you get started and you're in the groove, you're like, I'll do more. And even if you're tired, you end up doing like a half workout or 3/4 of a workout. Or sometimes you surprise yourself and do a full one.
Yeah.
It's just about like getting the shoes on and getting in there. Yeah. But what's great about starting with this like low-level cardio stuff or low-level workouts is that you're not going to get super sweaty and uncomfortable. So you can go straight to the bar from there to get your work done.
Yeah.
I get super sweaty and nasty, so usually I have to go home and get food and like rinse off in the shower first, which sucks about the longer workouts. But I think once the 9 to 5 is gone, like the schedules are going to be way easier to work with, right? We can even start our day at the gym and then shower, and then the rest of our day is free to do stuff. Like it'll be so much more flexible when we don't have the rigid, here's what 10 hours of your day looks like every day. It's just awful.
Yeah, that's what really blows right now. And additionally, like I'm trying to do a little bit of overtime here and there to save up some more money too.
Yeah.
Which stinks because I have to be on site,
But at least you have the opportunity to get overtime pay.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
That is true.
Yeah.
So pros and cons. But let's dive into the body of our podcast, do some quotes, do some questions.
Yeah.
Whatever we got. You want to hit us off?
I have mostly quotes this week.
Okay. I got quotes and statements.
Okay. I've got some cool ones. I've got some racing ones towards the end, but we'll save that for the end so that the listeners stick around through the boring shit to get to the racing stuff. My first one is an Elon Musk quote, and it's not related to investing, but I have related it to investing because a lot of times, I'm going to start with the explanation. I spoke with Justin recently. Justin Woodyard, he's starting at Northrop Grumman, and he really likes cyclical trading on the stock market, right?
Yeah.
So buy a stock, wait for it to jump up a little bit, sell it, and then buy again in the dip. And he wants to do that to make a little bit of extra money. And I was like, I'm super happy for you. That's awesome. It just doesn't work for me. Because he was like trying to get me excited about it. And I was like, it just doesn't scratch the itch. And he was like, why not? And I was like, well, because it takes a lot of time. Like it doesn't happen if I'm not there. And it doesn't make a ton of money. Like I don't think that you'll ever be a billionaire on that. Like you can make a lot of money, but if you're like day trading and stuff, like Warren Buffett is a buy and hold kind of guy, and he wasn't a millionaire until he was in his 50s. And I'm not willing to wait that long. I would rather start a business that does it for me, whatever. That's just my style, right? Doesn't work for other people. That's cool. It's a way more effort and energy to build an entire business and hire hundreds of employees than it is to learn how to day trade and do it there. So I totally understand that. But I think that it's important that with whatever you do, if it's day trading, if it's building a business, if it's underwater basket weaving, you need to pick one thing and then get the best at that and then diversify, right? And that's why investing in the stock market is a good idea once you have a ton of money, because it's a great way to beat inflation by a couple points every year and roughly keep your money the same. But it's not a really great place for me to build a lot of wealth. This Elon Musk quote is, it's okay to have all of your eggs in one basket as long as you control what happens to that basket. So you can fucking put all your bets on black so long as you can control where black is, right?
Right.
And I really like that perspective.
I think that goes along with a lot of the risk management stuff we've talked about too.
Yep.
Like to someone who is not knowledgeable about a certain topic, to jump into that topic and put their 9 to 5 to go into it with like no foresight is a really bad idea.
Yep.
But to someone who has worked on it and understands it and has a game plan and has some money saved up to survive while they implement it, I think that can be a much better idea.
Yeah. That's another thing that just makes me a little leery of the stock market is you have no control over the stocks in there. That's why Kiyosaki pushes you have to be in at the IPO. Like you have to buy stock before they go on the market, so that way you get a great deal, and then you can control it because you own equity in the company or whatever, right? You have an important stake in it, but I can't really control that. But if I open a bakery, let's say, like I control everything that's happening in that business. I control whether it succeeds or not, and that decreases the risk, I think. Yeah. So that's the first quote. I thought it was interesting to tie it in with Justin's stuff.
I dig that. Related to money and investing, actually, I was listening to an Iced Coffee Hour podcast with Michael Saylor, and he was talking about inflation and the value of money and investing. And he was essentially saying, if you just keep your money in a bank, right? He measures inflation by the amount of money that's printed each year. And approximately the quantity of bills increases, or the quantity of money increases 7% each year. So if you were to have $1 million today, by 2124, 100 years from now, 99% of the value from your million would be gone.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really scary to think about. You know, obviously we have a plan to combat that and invest in other assets that are more fruitful and hold their value.
It's all on cash flow.
But for people who are just working a 9-to-5, throwing money in a 401k, or people who don't really have a 401k and don't really save up much, you know, this situation is going to continue to get harder and harder and harder for them.
Yeah.
And that's really scary to me because, you know, we might have businesses in mind or real estate investments in mind or whatever, but it's the body of people to essentially work those businesses, either employees of those businesses or customers of those businesses. If the body of those people doesn't have the disposable income to be able to come to our business, that's also a scary aspect. You know what I mean? Like if the economy continues to spiral downward and the general populace doesn't have income to be able to go to, you know, a mom and pop shop or whatever, that affects them directly, of course, because they don't have, if they can't go to a mom and pop shop, they probably can't afford their rent.
Right.
But it also affects our situation because if they can't afford to go out, then they can't afford to invest in our business or, you know, rent a space in our apartment complex or whatever. Right.
I think that, interestingly, like $1 million 100 years from now, most people cannot conceptualize how much $1 million is. Right. But to bring it to like our level, like, I mean, one day we will be able to conceptualize that because we will have that money, but I don't right now. I heard a Warren Buffett speech on a woman that he bought her company, and she started in 1917 with $2,500. So like one of our paychecks, or honestly a little more than one of our paychecks, right? She started a business with that money, right? She saved and scrimped and saved and whatever, right? Started a business with that money. Today, that's $60,000, right? Which is obscene. It's obscene that a single paycheck today was $60,000 back then, right? And that was over 100 years ago. So like take that and blow that up. That's what we're looking at, right? Like your paychecks are going to become, that's essentially saying your $2,500 paycheck today in 100 years is going to look like $60,000 at this rate. Could you imagine getting a $60,000 paycheck? That's obscene, right? I think that for people to, I think that what I love about our business here is that there is some insurance against, what's it called when an economy's down? Like
just a bear market.
A bear market. That's what it is. I think that there's a little bit of insurance in the bear market, but I'd have to talk to you about it off air. But I understand your point. If there's something like a Great Depression or something, then luxury items cannot be bought because they don't have the money to do it, right?
Right.
Although an interesting comment I'll make is that I think the major issue with inflation isn't in the money you make each month. It's in what your savings look like. Because so long as you're earning money, your company will keep paying you minimum wage, which is the wage that you need to live on, right? So as long as you're getting a paycheck every month, you can pay your rent and you can pay your food bills and everything like that. The issue is if you take that money and put it in a bank today, when you need it, when you retire, it's going to be worth far less. So the real issue is people in retirement. And that's one of the main reasons that we got into business, is because we realized, oh, I'm putting away fucking 18% of each paycheck into a 401k. That's not going to be worth jack dick when we retire, and you're not allowed to touch the money until then. So it's not like you can even invest it, right?
And then you get taxed on it.
And then you get taxed on it. Or you get taxed on it now and then. And if you're doing the math...
Well, you get taxed on it. Even if you do a Roth, you pay the taxes before you put it in, but you still pay capital gains taxes, right?
Yes.
So you're regardless of what style 401k you have, you are still double taxed.
Yep, it's income tax and capital gains tax, right? But if you're doing the math to try and figure out, should I pay tax now or pay tax later, you're asking the wrong question, which is, how do I get around taxes, right? Because there are legal ways to get deferred from taxes or just write-offs, right?
Yeah.
But people aren't asking that, because then you got to go through fucking 10 years of business shit to figure out how to get there. Yeah. But I think that, and one of our friends mentioned this the other day about Social Security, like eventually these checks are going to start bouncing, right? And he was surprised by it. And I was like, that's not surprising at all. If you think of how the system works, it's the government wants your money now so that they can pay you when you retire. And so many people believe that. So many people believe, I'll put $1 in today, and then when I retire, the government will give me my $1 back. No, they want your $1 now because they owe the previous generation $1. They've already spent their $1. Now they need this to go pay the new people. And guess what? For every $1 that you put in, a certain percentage of that goes to other tax bullshit, and only a percentage of your $1 actually goes to paying Social Security. And so long as there are more people in the United States, they'll need more Social Security, right? So if you have, they're really banking on old people dying, because if you have 100 20-year-olds paying Social Security and then 50 people retiring, pulling on their Social Security, they can gamble and spend half of that money and then only give half of it to the old people retiring. And that's the game that they're playing. But the better medicine gets and the longer people live, the more of that money they're going to have to actually give to people. And that's a fucking problem.
Yeah. Well, additionally, too, I think I have a hunch that more and more people will go a different route as the economy gets worse. And then less and less people will be paying in or like having traditional 401ks, right? And like finding ways to potentially avoid that tax, right? And then as you avoid that tax, less money comes in, and then that's another issue on top of it too. That's not a flushed out idea, so that might be a little bit jank, but you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, I mean, it's a prediction, so I can't say that you're wrong.
Yeah, that's true.
I think I'm skeptical just because I'm constantly shocked by the lack of initiative that people have.
And that's true.
Like, you've got to remember.
I mean, I can't, well, like,
I know, we're built different.
Yeah,
we're built different.
I know.
But okay, so I have two examples here. Number one, my girlfriend is getting her real estate license.
Yep.
And on the first day, they were like, Thursday's math day. Bring your calculators, brush up on your algebra. Like, it's going to be intense. Get ready for the math. And she was like, okay. And so she got there on Thursday, right? She's been answering questions. Like, her hand is always in the air up to this point. But now she's like, well, I haven't done math in a while. So like, I don't know if I'm going to be ready for this, right? And the extent of the math was, here's an example. I don't know. A county has 1,600 acres, right? And 1/4 of that belongs to X property. And then that property is divided up into 32 different quadrants, and each quadrant's valued at $50,000. How much does each quadrant, how much is it worth, right?
Oh, yeah.
So essentially, they're doing long division. And so he was like, if you take this and then you divide it by that, and then you do this and whatever, then you get basic math, right? And she raised her hand and she was like, why don't you just multiply the fractions together and get the number that you're looking for? And they were like, that's too advanced and we're not considering that. Like, just do the long division like we talked about. She was like, wow, that's the basic level of intelligence in the United States of America.
Yeah.
And
I mean, isn't the IQ like well below 100? Like, isn't it like 80?
I think the average is
86.
Yeah. To put that in perspective, even smart people, my mom worked for the IRS. She talked us through how 401ks work. And in saying it, we were questioning it and she just wouldn't hear it.
Yeah.
So even people who know are still hesitant.
Or remember when we were talking about income tax and how the brackets are layered. So it's like if you get your 11K deduction or whatever it is, and then if you make up from 11 to 20, you get taxed at 10% roughly. Yeah. And then from 20 to 30, you get taxed at 15%. She was trying to say that, oh, if you make 25, everything is taxed at 15%. And I was like, no, like it's layered as you go up. You don't just like bump up a whole bracket and then sweep that percentage over your entire income.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I wasn't rude about it because there's no point to making an argument about it. But in my head, I was like, you worked for the IRS, and this is pretty basic.
Yep.
I don't mean to be rude, but
right.
It was surprising.
Yeah. It's constantly surprising that even the people that you would expect most to know this stuff don't and aren't concerned about it. Like, they'll complain how high taxes are, but then they'll pay them and not do anything about it. And I can understand that perspective because I was that person when I was, working actually I wasn't, because I didn't have to pay taxes until I took this job because I never made more than the standard deduction a year. So I never actually, the first time that I had to consider withholding money for taxes, I questioned it. Right. But it's most people don't even know that there's an option. They don't even know.
It's interesting. I heard this the other day too, and it's that if the government is giving you a tax refund, you're using the system the way they want you to use it. So if they aren't giving you a refund, that's a sign that you're exploiting the system in the way that's beneficial for you.
Right. Or paying at the very is exactly what you should be paying. Right.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, generally speaking, if you're getting a tax refund, you're doing what they want you to do.
Right. Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of an interesting take. I like that.
Yeah. No, me too.
Yeah.
I thought I had another thing to say, but yeah, no, it's fucked. It's fucked.
It is fucked.
It really is.
I'm worried for the people who aren't thinking about it.
And what's worse, to drag politics into this is the middle class and the lower middle class are most Americans, right? Mm-hmm. So most of the people are lower or lower class, right? It's not equal percentage, low, medium, high, like they lead you to believe. It's mostly lower and middle. And so when you look at the policies that are being passed, you can really tell what they want for America based on how they're helping people in those classes, right? So, for example, generally speaking, I don't like universal health care, right? Because I don't want to pay for your broken arm. Makes sense, right? I think that's unfair to some people and then gratuitous to other people. You're either gifted something or, shackled, and I don't like that. But I think that generally speaking, doing a whole revamp of how taxes are spent and then reducing the amount of taxable income or reducing the amount of taxes on people would be beneficial. I think that would help people. Mm-hmm. So generally speaking, when you look at the laws that are being passed, you have to think, is this in the best interest for people who don't make much money right now?
Yeah.
What was your point?
Something that was interesting I heard about the middle class the other day is, again, back to the 60s. If you took the income in the 60s and then scaled it up based on inflation, based on cost of goods, gas, groceries, whatever, how much do you think you'd have to be making today to be middle class according to the scaling of the 60s?
I can estimate. I know it's more because they were able to buy homes and cars and stuff. I know it's in the six figures. I think 120 to be middle figures.
300K.
Whoa, that's insane. Over 300K to be middle class.
I mean, if you think about it, though, it makes sense because people in the 60s, they didn't work overtime. At least from what I've seen, obviously some people did, but a lot of people just went to their traditional 9-to-5, clocked in, clocked out. The wife stayed at home with multiple kids, multiple cars, a home in a nice area, and that was their life. And then a lot of those people were also able to retire early,
Oh, wait, I might be thinking about this backwards. So middle class in the 60s was equivalent to earning $300,000 today.
Right. If you scale the income from the 60s.
So generally people had more disposable income in the 60s than they do now.
Relative to the expenses of things and inflation.
Yes. Right. Got it. Yeah. No, that's insane. What's even crazier than that is I wonder how that slates up to in 1917, $2,500 is now $60,000 today. Right. Well, 1960 is roughly halfway between then. Right. So 50 years instead of 100 years, let's just say. So then 2,000 would become 30,000, right? Or 2,500 would become 30,000. So now we're looking at a multiple of 15, right? So if you scale that back in the opposite direction from 300 to, I think the median income now is 60 or something like that, right?
The median?
Yeah.
Or the mean? Because the mean is much lower. But the median is the most.
Let's just say the mean. Average.
The mean is in the 30s.
Yeah, that's wild. So that's a 10 times multiple. So that's still even falling behind the rate of inflation. So that's still like people are getting less money than the rate.
Oh, I don't. 30,000 a year. Like you'd be living in a rough neighborhood with a car that barely works, sharing rent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is rough.
Yeah.
Like,
that's insane.
Mean income.
Yeah. That's insane.
And I
300,000
to
for middle
be fair,
class.
I think that does take into account the homelessness population as well. I think.
Really?
I think so.
Hmm.
I think so.
So like, there's a lot of zeros in there.
Yeah, there's a lot of zeros.
I wonder if median is better.
But don't quote me on that. I think that's how it's scaled. I'm sure if it's scaled in that manner, that people with jobs, the mean income would probably be slightly higher, maybe 40 something.
Yeah,
something around there.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, even at 40 something, like that's low.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. The cost of living is really high, pretty much everywhere.
Right? Yeah, unless you're like in. I mean, I think even in super rural areas, it's starting to get up there.
Yeah,
like it's hard to avoid.
Yeah,
like you can't. There's not like a spot that I can think of where you can go and have like super cheap living,
right?
And all other expenses being cheap. Like there's definitely some areas where housing is really cheap, but I bet you if you go to the grocery mart,
that's still
going to be expensive. If you go to the gas station, it's still going to be expensive.
Yeah,
right,
dude. What fucking pisses me off? I don't have a rant for today, so this is my fucking rant for today. So many people will tell me gas prices are getting better. They're not. I filled up
$4.20 the other day.
Dude, the people who tell me that gas is just as expensive now as it was with Trump before Biden shut down the pipeline and the Ukraine crisis and whatever.
Premium was like $2.90.
Dude, it was less than that. I remember filling up the Firebird, which took 93. I filled that up for $1.98 a gallon. Once. I remember that because I was like, wow, it's below $2, right? I have to go to Sam's to get the price down to $3.80 now.
Yeah.
It's
filled up at the Oval right here yesterday. It was $4.20.
Fucking insane. It's so expensive, right? It's so expensive. It drives me up the fucking wall. Well, it doesn't need to be that way. 5 years ago, it wasn't. Right? That's why I'm pissed about it, because it's needless.
There's a correlation. I saw this a very long time ago. There's a correlation between election years and gas prices, especially around election time.
They go down.
So I'd be willing to bet you, like come September, October, November, the gas prices will start to drop.
Yeah.
Which will be nice. But
I guess, but like, dude,
it's kind of a scam because people's memory is so short and so shitty. Yeah. It's like people go around to election time and they see the gas prices low and they're like, oh my God, like, blah, 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 has been doing such a good job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So regardless of whatever it's just a ploy to get people happy about the current person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think, was that my first quote or do you have a thing? So have you done your first thing?
Yeah, I've done my first thing.
Okay. So then I'll do my second thing. Turn. Yeah. I got to figure out which one I want to do. This one is about being a good person no matter where you're at in life. And actually, I want to bring this up. We had to have a talk with our partner about communication because we are generally very responsive and they weren't. And so we had to sit down and say, hey, like, we got to talk to you more frequently, right? We need you to be more responsive. And I had this realization, which was, I don't think I've left a conversation hanging in years. Like in the middle of a conversation and I just disappear. Like, I don't think anyone's been like, oh yeah, let's hang out. Like, are you free for dinner Tuesday? And then I just don't respond. I don't think that's happened in maybe years. I think I always finish conversations with people, even if it's people I don't like or a conversation I don't want to have, right?
Yeah.
And not that that's what was happening with our partner, but generally speaking, we're good communicators. And there's this guy that we're friends with at the bar. He flies drones. He wanted to do some shots with us to make a video to add to his portfolio. And we were like, yeah, we'd love to. Let's meet up 2 weeks from now at 7 a.m. at this place. Here's a document of the route that we're going to take. And here are some good places to fly. We can't go here because of the spaceport space, etc. Right? Like, we gave him all this documentation. And we didn't think anything of it because that's just how we operate. Right?
Yeah.
And then my girlfriend was working at the bar a couple days ago, and she was like, he came in and he was gushing about how awesome you guys are and how attentive you are. And like, even though this isn't anywhere on your priority list, because like we've got work and business and other things that are like more important, but even the least important thing that doesn't really impact us because we're doing him a favor, we still put forth maximum effort. Right? And I think that made me feel really good because it shows that he appreciates it, which makes me appreciate it. Right? And I want to maintain that part of me as we get more successful. I never want to be the guy who leaves people hanging. And so this quote is, everyone is your best friend when you're successful. Make sure that the people you surround yourself with are also the people that you're not afraid of failing with. And I like that and how it relates to this, because if you're a genuine person and you always respond to people and you're upfront with them, I don't think you ever have a reason to be afraid of failing in front of them. I think they'll always see you for who you are because you're genuine. Yeah. If you leave people hanging and you disappear and you're flaky, I think that they're less likely to like you and then less likely to support you on your way up.
I would agree with that. Can you read the quote one more time? I want to hear it twice.
Everyone is your best friend when you're successful. Make sure that the people you surround yourself with are also the people that you're not afraid of failing with. So once you become successful, everyone's going to kiss your ass because you're successful. But on the way up, people won't be like that. So make sure that on the way up, there are genuine people who you're not afraid of failing around, right? And I think that generally speaking, I'm less afraid to fail around people when they're rooting for me. I mean, okay, I guess I don't care anyways, but I think that people are more likely to root for you if you're as communicative as we are.
Yeah. Something I've heard a lot too is that you don't get the support you need when you're trying to climb the ladder. But once you get to the top, you get all the support in the world. Yeah. And that's the one point in time where you really don't need the support.
Yeah.
Which I think goes along with that really well. Mm-hmm. And, I think I've done a lot of work personally to lessen how much value I pull from other people's opinions about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I'm still working on that actively. But I think that ties in with that too. And it's overall really important to have people that support you regardless. And then the people who don't support you regardless, I don't think are worth having in your life.
Yeah, I agree.
I
agree. I think generally people are more likely to support you if you're kind to them, even if you don't have time for them. Because even if we didn't have time to go film that drone thing with Jace, we would say, hey, dude, we don't have time. Hit us back in a month, etc. Right? And I think that there's still respect there because you're communicating. But falling off the face of the earth is not acceptable. I think that irks people. It irks me for sure.
I don't think I really leave conversations hanging. I mean, I'll forget to respond for a few hours sometimes and stuff like that. But I always get back to the person. I don't just leave a conversation and go do something else.
I texted a friend from college yesterday because he's into guns and I'm going to buy a gun.
Yeah.
And we were having a conversation and I was in the middle of eating brunch at that time or lunch.
Yeah.
And so I put my phone down to focus on the date I was on. And then I texted him back and I was like, hey, I'm sorry for the delay. I'm running errands. And he was like, what delay? And I was like, I mean, it took me like 10 minutes to respond. And he was like, I'm used to people not responding for several hours. Like, this is fine. And I was like, that's so pitiful that it takes people hours to respond, like consistently, like most people, it takes them hours to respond to this guy. He's a great guy. I love him.
Yeah.
Right. And it's so baffling to me because even if I'm busy, I think the longest response time I have is like maybe 2 hours, and that's at the worst. Yeah. I think my average response time is 30 minutes.
Yeah. One thing that I've done, I used to leave my ringer off, which would, my responses would be 4 or 6 hours sometimes.
Yeah.
And, the only times where I won't respond, like for that period of time, is when I'm working on a car and my hands are super greasy. Like, that's the only time. Because I hate nothing more than like getting into a job and your hands are all dirty and you're in this weird angle and then you hear your phone ring. I'm like, I'm not fucking getting my phone right now.
Yeah.
But other than that, I leave my ringer on, and when I see a text message, I'll respond to it.
Right.
Or an email.
Yeah.
Or whatever. One thing I wanted to actually address on, if you're good on that point.
Yeah, that's good.
This kind of ties in a way.
It doesn't have to. It's okay.
It does a little bit.
Okay.
It's regarding lessons that you learn. Like I've learned the lesson that having good people in your life that support you regardless is important, and the opinions of others doesn't really matter that much.
Okay.
And so, what is one lesson that you feel like you've learned consistently or maybe a few times, but maybe you haven't addressed a concrete solution to that lesson? You haven't really changed your behavior. You continue to learn the same thing, but you don't change your behavior. And I actually have one. It's a little bit hard to think about because I think most times we both like learn a lesson and then change our behavior. Right?
I've got a great one, actually.
Yeah, but there's one thing that I've consistently done and I haven't learned yet. And now, since I know it and I can see it and I can focus on it, I'm going to change my behavior. But when I go to look at cars, I get excited about the car and I check the car out, but I always forget like one or two things. Like I forget to check if the windshield washers work. And sometimes it's fine, whatever. Or I forget to check the age of the tires. You know, I'm just making examples. You know, but it's like these small things I consistently forget about, and then I don't learn my lesson because then when I get the car, there's always something that I forgot to check that's wrong. And so now I'm going to make a list, you know, and I have to run through that entire list before I purchase a vehicle. You know, for example, with the 335 that we bought, we tried the sunroof, but we didn't try it all the way. And when I tried it all the way, the fabric on that sunroof top rolled back and it got that adhesive shit all over it. Right. And so that's something that we should have tried all the way to ensure that it actually worked all the way back. You know, not just halfway back. And so that's something that I've noticed that I want to change my behavior regarding. What's something that you got.
My friends in high school, when they would go look at a new car, they would also get really excited. And I know that the worst time to buy a car is when you're excited. Because you're willing to look past shit and you're not going to negotiate. You're just
or you just forget stuff, which is what I do. Like I forget to check age of tires. I forget to check if wipers work. I forget these basic things, and then there's always one of those things I forgot that's broken. I have to add it. And so I would always go with my friends because most times I didn't care. A lot of my friends had BMWs in high school. A lot of times I didn't care. But I would go, and while they're talking to the owner and they're, you know, rubbing their dicks around, like getting excited about the car, I would look at it from like a super materialistic, like I would sit in the back seat on the test drive and just make notes on everything. I sent you the notes for the 335 after we checked that out, right? And a lot of it was like the windshield stripping on the top is cracked and the door handle's sticky, shit like that. The tires. Oh, something I didn't notice about that car was the windshield strip. And that's something you noticed.
Because
I was just focused on like, how does it drive? How does it feel? What's this? What's that? And you were really looking at like the details, the little stuff about it. And I was like, oh shit, like I'm glad that you came along because I got excited just about driving it and feeling it and seeing what it's like. I totally glossed over like these smaller trim pieces that do add to the aesthetic and do add to the appeal of the car and can lead to water leaks or other issues down the line.
I always look at it super critical and like way too detail oriented because I know that whoever I'm with is going to be like, dude, it drove great. It was so awesome. And I'll go, okay, awesome. But there's all these things, right? Here are good things and here are bad things. I make a pros and cons list every single time. But it's great to have somebody there who isn't caught up in the emotions of it. Their money isn't on the line and they don't really care because they're going to look at it like super realistically, right? So I am aware that my friends have had those faults before in looking at cars because I've had some friends buy some fucking lemons. You're not one of them, but they bought some terrible cars. And I was like I could have told you, like we've been looking at cars together for a while. And, you know, every time I point these things out, you haven't got one. The one time I don't go, you buy this piece of shit. My buddy bought a BMW and it blew its head gasket like immediately. And I was like, dude, it was fucking leaking oil like crazy.
What really sucks about my situation is that I checked the oil and I smelled it and it smelled okay.
There's nothing you could have done.
And it's like, you know, now I think my rule of thumb is like, if I go to look at a used car, I will pay for an oil change on the vehicle, but I will not buy the car unless I do an oil change on it. Because it's like everything was good about that car. Like that car drives great. There's like a couple small things with the trim that I was aware of pre-purchase, you know, and like I obviously knew the ABS module had an issue before purchase. So like I knew this stuff. There wasn't anything like out of the question. But, you know, now I have that the fuel trim codes are like whatever. It's a vacuum leak, something like that. And that's something that, you know, is easier to fix, but now I'm thinking about it and it's like, okay, if this oil looks like shit, do I have blow by? And that's what's causing my crazy pressure in the crankcase, which is then overloading the PCV, which is causing this fuel trim code issue. Because, you know, it's like now I don't know what the root cause of it is. And I don't really want to dump money into it unless I know. You know? And so it's like, it really sucks. And like now I've learned my fucking lesson to like make a list and go through it. And I think one of the things on that list is going to be like, I'm going to bring oil and I'm going to change your oil. And if this shit comes out fucking not good, I am not buying this vehicle because I do not want to go through this again. Like that is, I need a car with clean oil. I don't care if it's even got a little bit of a shimmer to it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If it's been well maintained, it should have clean oil.
When I was trying to sell my Firebird, there was a woman that was a prospective buyer, and she was like, "Take it to my mechanic so you can look at it." And I was like, "I'm not taking it to your fucking mechanic." But she was the only prospective offer that I had, so I was like, "Fine, I'll drive it." Right? And he got it up on a lift, and he scanned all the codes, and he ran through everything top to bottom. I still have a picture of the whole list of everything that was wrong with it. And like, I had listed the car as good condition, and like once you see this list, it looks like a fucking lemon, right? Because there's so much wrong with it that you can't see like with the naked eyes. Like he did the oil and he looked at the coolant, he like cracked the diff open and shit. Like he did a lot to see everything. And it's tough when you're meeting someone in a parking lot in Miami to know how the oil looks, right? So like I think that generally speaking, I don't think that you could have done anything more apart from ask for an oil change, and that seems excessive, right? I think that you did a just fine job. But I mean, like my friend would buy a car, there would be an engine light on, and he wouldn't even care about it. He'd be like, "Oh, it's probably fine. The owner says it just needs a new battery or something." And I'm like, That doesn't make any sense, right? Generally speaking, slow is smooth and smooth is fast, right? There's a saying from in the comedy community, which is if you think you're doing poorly, slow down. And if you think you're doing well, slow down, right? So like always just take a deep breath and take a step back. But it's tough because how often do you judge people that you like? Like how often do you sit and look at me or look at your girlfriend and go, man, their eyebrows look weird and their hair's fucked and their teeth are ugly and I don't like the way they say that word. Like how often do you judge things that you like super harshly? It's not super common. Right?
Yeah.
And so when you're looking at a new car and you're excited about it, you're more likely to look past those flaws because you're not a judgmental person by nature, right? And it's easy if you're not in love with that person to judge that. So like, if you're walking on the street and there's some dude fat, like so fat he's waddling, right? You'll judge him because you aren't friends with him, right? But if you grew up with him and you're best friends with him, you're not going to judge that, right? You're more likely to make excuses for it and not look at it for what it is. And so it's understandable that would happen.
It sucks with my situation too because he did a lot of genuinely awesome maintenance.
Yeah.
Like, there was so much maintenance done of the car that when I dropped that oil, I never expected it to look bad.
Right.
Like I thought it was going to be clean oil. It's just going to be a quick day, like in and out, change my oil, whatever. Because he did so many seals and gaskets and hoses and awesome work. And the engine bay is like cleaner than the Miata's is. Like it is spotless in that bay. And so it was just such a shocker to drop the oil and have like noticeable particulate in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just is what it is, learned my lesson.
I hear you.
But, now I got to deal with it.
Yeah.
What I'll try to do probably is fix the small things on it and get the ABS lights to go away. I have a module rebuilder that can do a pretty, a good job on it for a pretty affordable price.
Got it.
So I'll get those lights to go away and then I'll probably just list it.
Yeah. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Right. Cause like there's not, I'm sure it's a fine car and I'm sure there's nothing like horrifically wrong with it. I don't think you're scamming anybody. It's just like, if there are problems in 20,000 miles, you don't want to be dealing with it. Like we're going to have shit going on. We can't put up with it.
Exactly.
Knock on wood for the Camaro, which is on its way out. I don't know if I have lessons like that off the top of my head. There are things that I want to improve. Like I found that if I bake chicken breast for meal prep and I put it in a salad for dinner, I'll eat that every night, no issue, right? So I went from buying the pre-bagged salad mixes to buying the big bags so I can put a big thing of leaves together so I don't have to deal with cutting open the bags every night, right? I could just put like a handful in and I'm good to go. And then I bought a meal prep container so that I can like partition the chicken out in advance, right? But I only bought one container because I wanted to make sure it works. So like now I'm going to go buy more so that I can like stack all my dinners up like I do my lunches and breakfasts, right? But that's like a progression thing and that's planned out. That's not like, oh, fuck, I should have done this differently. I don't think there are many things that I can think of right now where I'm like, oh, fuck, I should have done that differently, apart from getting to bed on time. Super frequently, I
don't learn that lesson either.
Dude, I refuse to learn it. I'm so shit at it. I'll leave the bar, I'll stop working at like 11, and I'll get home at 11:30, right? Like after I cash out and whatever. And I'll shower, and then that's like midnight, and then I'll dick around in the kitchen with like food or whatever. I'll pack my bag or I'll fuck with gym stuff. It's not even stuff I need to do. I'm just like fucking tweaking around, right? And then I'm not tired because I'm in the working mood and I've been drinking tea for fucking 2 hours. And so I'll take a melatonin and I'll get on my phone until the melatonin kicks in, right? But then I'm sucked into whatever podcast I'm listening to or video I'm watching, and then I'll fight the melatonin to stay awake. and then I'm up until 3.
Yeah.
So like I left on time, I got home on time. Sometimes I even get in bed on time, and then like I just wait for the melatonin to kick, and I'm up.
Yeah.
It fucks me.
What's hard about this too, I think, is that, it's easy to say, oh, if you do X thing and Y happens and you don't like Y, then change X thing, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes if you do X thing, Y happens and you don't like Y, but then you feel like you do X thing again and Z happens, and Z is much better than Y.
Same input, different output.
Right. And it's sometimes really hard to learn this lesson, because it's very easy to say, oh, well, like, I'll just try it again and like maybe it'll be different. Like a basic primitive example is like putting a transmission in a car. Like every time you go to put a transmission back in a car, you feel like you're doing it the same fucking way. You're lifting it up and trying to push it in, to slide it in and get it lined up every fucking time.
Yeah.
But sometimes on the third day, it just goes in for whatever.
And you did the same shit.
And you did the same fucking shit, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's sometimes really hard to learn that lesson. But I think that business and entrepreneurship is a little different than cars, because with business and entrepreneurship, if you try the same thing, I think you would generally get the same outcome.
Yeah.
Right? Because then when you get a different outcome, there's something consciously that you changed about your input, right? Mm-hmm. With a transmission going into a car, you might feel genuinely as though you did the same thing.
Dude, the OptiSpark is a perfect example of this. You did it for 45 minutes, and I got under there and it went on the first time. I did the same shit you did.
Yeah.
I literally watched you and was like, I'll try and repeat and then replicate, right?
Yeah.
And I did one in the first time.
Yeah.
And I just got lucky.
Yeah. And it's like, I think that with car stuff or stuff like that,
great example.
It's easy to feel like you're doing the same thing each time.
Yeah.
But there's some micro difference that you can't notice that's out of your control or within your control, but you don't realize it. That made the difference for it to fit.
Yeah.
Right. But with business, there isn't a micro change somewhere along the line, because the fundamentals are always the same. Even if the circumstances change, the fundamentals are the same and they apply in the same way.
Yeah.
If you hit the fundamentals, you'll get the outcome.
Yeah.
Right. But with car stuff, there's just mystical factors that sometimes can't be explained.
Yeah. So I think with sleep, what's challenging for me is that when it's time for bed, I don't want to go to sleep. And when it's time to wake up, I don't want to get up. And the problem is, I don't want to go to sleep because I'm not tired. I wasn't challenged that day, and like I have more energy, but I need to go to sleep because I have to be at work in the morning. And then in the morning, I don't want to wake up because I don't want to go to work because I hate it there and I'm bored, right? Yeah. And I am hoping, and I don't think this is an excuse, this is just hope, that when we quit and we start our business, I'll be excited to wake up in the morning, and because I'm waking up in the morning and then doing stuff and being engaged throughout the day, I'll be tired enough to go to sleep at night. And I won't like continue to have energy and want to stay awake, because like on the rough days with SAE, when we were tired, like 11:30 at night, I'm exhausted and I'm ready to go to sleep. But especially after 2 or 3 days staying up until 2 or 3.
Oh yeah.
Right. So I'm hoping that when I'm challenged more throughout the days, I'll be tired enough to get better sleep. And I think I'll sleep better, which is important because muscle growth doesn't happen without sleep. Right. And
brain development too. I mean, our brains will develop until we're 25, 26.
Yep. And testosterone. I was talking to Grace about this the other day because she heard somewhere that estrogen levels are directly correlated to emotive states. So the more estrogen you have, the more emotionally rambunctious you are. And funny enough, the more testosterone you have, the more level-headed you are.
Interesting.
And I was like, that's interesting, because aren't dudes on steroids, like, isn't roid rage a thing, like emotionally unstable? And she said, yeah, but studies have shown that it's not the testosterone, it's the other chemicals that are in it, and they affect your mood. And I was like, interesting, which makes sense, because when you think of a masculine man, let's take Hormozy, for example, right? Super level-headed.
Yeah.
And then take someone who has a lot of estrogen. Take my mom. She's insane, right? All over the place emotionally. And I thought that was an interesting correlation. And then we started to talk about testosterone and like, what can you do to naturally boost your testosterone? Because I don't want to have to take like TRT if I don't have to. I'd rather do it naturally. And the 3 leading indicators for testosterone, can you guess what they are? You know, sleep is one of them.
Sleep, sex.
Nope.
Diet.
That's a byproduct. Diet. Yep.
Sleep, diet, and workout routine.
Exercise. Yep. Resistance training. Those are the top 3. Sleep is the most important. Most important. You can have a great diet and work out every day, but if you're not sleeping right, your T's going to drop.
Yeah.
And I don't want that. I want to grow my muscle. I want to grow my brain, and I want to boost my testosterone, so I need to sleep more. But if I get in bed and I'm not tired, then what the fuck am I supposed to do? So that's a lesson that I haven't learned yet. And I'm hoping that changes when the circumstance changes. Because like you can't control when you go to sleep. I take the melatonin. I do my best, but like that's the best I got.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
I'm in the same boat.
Yeah. So I think, I have one more and then the racing ones.
Okay. I also have one more. You want to go for it?
Yeah, let me do this first. So these are on, this is related to what is a business, right? Like, what are you selling? Most times you're selling an experience, not a product, right? You want to make your customer happy. You don't really care what your product is because you want your customer to be happy, right? So these are 2 quotes. Number 1, this is from Debbie Fields. Are you familiar with the Mrs. Fields cookie franchise? Mm-hmm. There's these big cookies with the frosting on them that you can get at like, I don't know, like carnivals or big malls or something, right?
Gotcha.
Kids loved these cookies in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, right? Or maybe just 90s and early 2000s. I've never felt like I was in the cookie business. I've always been in a feel-good feeling business. My job is to sell joy. My job is to sell happiness. My job is to sell an experience, which I really like because, especially with the business that we're going into, I don't really care what the product is as much as I care about how my customer feels when they're enjoying it.
I don't think the product matters as much.
Exactly. Coca-Cola does this. Have you ever watched a Coca-Cola ad and noticed that the product isn't really in it? It's people doing stuff.
It's a fucking awesome example of that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I've never seen a Red Bull ad that talks about the taste of the beverage. Ever. Never.
Gives you wings.
Yeah.
Makes you feel awesome.
Gives you wings. And then it's just some like motocross, car, airplane, crazy shit. Every time. There's nothing about the drink in it. Sometimes they don't even drink the drink.
Exactly.
Sometimes
it's just on the helmet.
A Red Bull logo on a helmet or a plane.
Yeah.
And then they just do stunts.
Yeah. So then I've got another quote that complements that, which is, a part of the customer experience is this. It's a Henry Ford quote. The man who will use his skill and constructive imagination to see how much he can give for $1 instead of how little he can give for $1 is bound to succeed. That's Henry Ford of Ford Motor Company. So if you're oriented in a, how do I cheat my customers out of this? How do I make a product that I can produce for as little as possible and then sell it for as most as possible, versus how can I make this product super awesome for a really fair price? Because then your product is better, even if the price is the same. And I think that goes along with the customer experience too. Both of them are really focused on, how do I make my customers happy, not how do I make money. Mm-hmm. And I think that is a real key to success. I listened to a Warren Buffett speech that my dad sent me that was related to that as well. It's, are my customers happy, not am I hitting my profit quotas, right? Like, can I make this for cheaper or sell it for more?
Yeah.
It's focused on customer satisfaction. Okay, so I've only got one more, just the racing ones, but do your thing.
Yeah. You're very familiar with this concept. I don't think the audience is yet. And obviously, we listen to very similar podcasts, so we both know about the angry boat theory. Now, in broad summary, the angry boat theory is essentially the theory that only one person in a conversation can be upset, right? So if you are a business owner and you have a customer come into your store upset, they are in the angry boat. But if you, as the business owner, can address their issue in a manner that you jump in the angry boat and are upset on their behalf, then they get out of the angry boat, right? And the advantage of this is that you essentially make them feel heard. You make them feel as though they are cared about and that the problem is even more serious to you than it is to them. And I thought this is a really valuable tool to use. And I think it can be applied not only to business, but like general relationships and friendships. It's just important to make the other person feel heard. And, if you don't jump in the angry boat when someone else is upset at you, you don't make them feel heard, because then you make them feel as though their problem is minute and it doesn't matter to you. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's a really awesome concept. I was curious if you had a time where you remembered jumping in the angry boat.
I get pissed a lot at people, not on their behalf, just generally. I'm just an angry person. That's not true. I have a specific example, but it's not me. And it's the day after I listened to this podcast a couple weeks ago. I was at the bar having a drink up by the register, right? And the bartender picked up the phone. It was ringing. They picked up the phone. And they were like, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm not sure what I can do to let me get my manager, right? So he put the phone on hold and he went and got the owner. pardon me, I got lots of burps today. And the owner came by and he was like, it's okay, I'll handle it. And he picked up the phone. He goes like, hello, good afternoon. I'm the owner. How can I help you? And I can hear this woman screaming through the phone. And he goes, oh my God, that's outrageous. And he was like, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry that this happened to you. This is absolutely ridiculous. I can't believe that we're both getting scammed by this. This is, so frustrating. Let me make this right for you. I'm going to get on the phone with DoorDash and I'm going to handle it and whatever. And we'll get you a refund right now. And I'll give you a coupon for extra stuff, if you do decide to come back here. And she started to settle down and he was like, yeah, I'm going to message them right now. I'll stay on the line with you while I do it. In the meantime, how have you been apart from this? Like, I haven't seen you in a while. Like, have you been doing only DoorDash orders? You should come in sometime. I miss you. Like, stuff like that. And he was looking at me for part of it while he was on the phone because he knew that I knew what he was doing, which is he jumped in the angry boat, she settled down, and then he made a personal connection with her while he handled the problem, right? So it was like, I'm more upset than you about this because you deserve to be treated better. And then I'm going to make it right. Here's what I can do for you. And then it's, how are you doing today? And it went seamlessly. She was happy by the end of the phone call and they did whatever. And like, the answer is always just give them free stuff. Apologize profusely, make it right. And then, one of Hormozy's things is for every bad experience, it takes 37 magical experiences to make up for it, right? So I think he gave her a refund on the drinks and then a coupon to come back. And then he was like hoping to see her in person, where I'm sure he'll give her another free something. I don't know.
Yeah. One example comes to mind, isn't a personal example, but I heard this story about this woman went to this lawyer. This was on a podcast as well. This woman went to a lawyer regarding malpractice when it came to her medical care. And she was trying to sue the hospital for malpractice for a mistake they made on paperwork or something like that. And, she went to the wrong, treatment facility, whatever.
Okay.
And once they dug into the case, the lawyer started looking into it and he was like, hey, this actually isn't the mistake of the hospital. This is the mistake of your general physician. And she was like, oh my God, Sarah, my general physician? Oh no, drop the case. It doesn't matter. Because she wasn't really upset about what happened. She was just probably upset with whatever treatment she got at the hospital, and she wanted to target the hospital in some manner and found this aspect of it that she felt was wrong. But once it was tied to someone she actually had a personal connection to and she cared about and she liked, she dropped the case. Because she was like, well, I don't want to sue Sarah. I like my general physician.
Right.
So I thought that's a interesting, it's a little bit tied to the angry boat, more so tied to building a personal connection with someone and the importance of, having that so that if situations arise, you have the benefit.
Yeah.
In that sense.
I think there are three attributes here, which I'll just lay flat. The first one is jumping in the angry boat and caring more about them and the situation and how they're being treated than they are upset with you. There's paying them back and making it right 37 times over. And those two things feed the third, which is to build a true personal connection with somebody. Right.
Yeah.
And those are two really great methods to do it. I used one this morning because I showed up late. I fucked up with my cars and I showed up late and I brought you a tea.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't even need to. I was using the time to do stuff.
I know. But if I show up late and then I come by and then I'm like, I'm going to use all your tools and then use your camera equipment and then you're going to edit a video of me. Peace. I'll see you tomorrow. That's way worse than if I show up and I'm like, hey, I'm sorry I'm late. I brought you a tea. I'm ready to get to work.
I get you.
But that's a great example of you can take it into everyday life. Like, it doesn't have to be just business. You can take it into everyday life as well. And generally speaking, I find that for people who I'm trying to build a connection with, apologizing is way easier than sticking to your guns. So a stranger in the parking lot on the last episode, he was like, oh, I was going to park there. And I was like, no, you weren't. You're not facing the right way. You're not going to bag in. Fuck you. And I kept walking. Right. I'm not going to apologize to him. I didn't do anything wrong. Right. But I think that identifying when you have done something wrong and then owning it and apologizing for it and then making up for it is critical in business. I feel like so many people are so vain and egotistical and aren't willing to accept when they've done something wrong that they can't make it right when they find that they've done something wrong because they've already stuck to their guns and committed to being right. And I think that is something that people can probably work on.
Yeah. I was going to say something very similar, but I think you summarized it in a good way.
Yeah.
So that's all I got for my quotes. You want to hit some racing stuff?
I have the last two are racing ones, and really, it's about winning, right? Because I did a workout last weekend in the heat. I brought the bike out, and I did a workout in the heat. And I can't do regular cardio workouts. Like, I can't keep it at 150 for the full time, because at the end, like the last 3 minutes, every single time, I'm like, I'm going to go as hard as I fucking can to finish this out, right? Like, I'm going to get my heart rate up to 200. And I can't stop myself from doing it. It's just, I love it too much. But it's really reminded me, like, dude, I haven't fucking won anything in a while. Like, I haven't sat down and competed and won, I think, since racing. And like, I fucking missed that. And for a winner to go without winning is like a lion starving. And it made me think about the crocodile quote, which is, do you know how to kill a crocodile? You wait for it to eat. It gets satiated. It goes into a coma-like state, and you can kill it with your bare hands if you want to, right? And I was like, I wonder if the reason that I'm not falling off and like going easy is because I haven't won in a while. I haven't eaten in a while. I'm a hungry croc. And when you look at people who have already succeeded, we've got a friend that both of us know. He likes watches and cars. He has had a meal, and he is satiated, and so he's starting to get into that comatose state, relax. And it's made me think, I think I'm immune to that. I think even once I eat, once I win, I'm going to want to do it again, and it won't be satiated. And I know that because through rowing and through all of the winning that I did, every time I get on a bike, I still want to win, right? Like, I still want to fucking go for it. So these quotes are about winners. The first one's badass. It's a racing quote. This is from the 2000 whatever Monaco Grand Prix. The announcer, Murray Walker, says, there are 7 winners of the Monaco Grand Prix on the starting line today, and 4 of them are Michael Schumacher. Which is fucking badass. I fucking love that so much. That's so cool. And the second quote is, there are winners, there are losers, and there are people who have not yet learned how to win. That's a Les Brown quote. And I like that one because you can look at it as life is full of winners and losers, right? And we're not billionaires in business. So you could say that we're losers, right? But we're still figuring out how to try. And I think that the derivative is more important than the position. Like, what direction are you moving? Are you moving in the right direction? Because if so, you're not labeled a winner or a loser, so long as you're continuing to try and to do, right? But if you've given up, or if you've tried and just can't cut it, then you can maybe label someone a loser. But so long as they're trying, I think that they're neither. And that, I think, is really important, because a lot of people are quick to judge someone as a winner or a loser.
I would agree with that. I think that the you know, well, you make
that's
a good
my whole
point.
rant. Yeah,
you make a good point. I think the most important thing is to be on a trajectory that you feel like you will be a winner.
Yep.
You know, if you're just sitting back and relaxing and complaining about your life and not doing anything about it, then you are a loser regardless.
Yep.
Regardless of where you are. I mean, I would even argue that people who have made it at one point in their life can become losers if they don't seek to continue improvement or continue growth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think that's a very important aspect in my life and yours. And I'm committed to that growth through my entire life. I don't think I'll stop growing. I don't think I will, quit on myself.
Yeah. Hormozy has the quote, which is grow or die. It's one or the other. Like, you never stay the same.
Yeah.
You're either growing or dying. And,
well, the people who live the longest are the ones that work until death.
Right. Yeah. And that's in business, and that's in everything. So that's like, even somebody who, like, I don't know, if Jeff Bezos, who is the richest man in the world, all of a sudden like kicks back and it's like, I'm not going to do anything today, right? You're dying that day. Like, you're not growing and you're not staying the same, because staying the same is dying. Yeah. And I think that quote started to resonate with me this week, and I really hadn't picked up on it until this week. And now I've started to understand what grow or die really means. And it's starting to click with me. Yeah. Cool. Thanks for bringing that. I like that. That's all I got. Cool. Well, thank you very much for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. Be well. Have a great week, and see you in a week.